Hello, everybody. It's Donna Cravata, and we are back again with another wisdom panel. And today, it's all about walking the Camino. And we have a whole panel of experts here, people that have walked the Camino, who have lived on the Camino, who still live on the Camino, and people that want to walk the Camino. So we've got a little bit of everything. And I'm going to do a quick introduction, and then I'm going to share a brief video from somebody who wanted to be here, and she was not available this day, but she just wanted to pop in and share a little bit. She's written 4 books on the subject and has been traveling those roads for years. So I'm just going to start introducing people. We have Diane. Diane, say your last name. I never say it right.
It's Wyzga, like wizard.
And she is an origin story, a co-creator of communication and a change maker, facilitator, and podcaster. Um, Deborah Keevan is the founder and chief inspiration officer of Highlander Press. Lisa Corrado is a coach, speaker, adventurer, champion for small businesses and entrepreneurs. And Rebecca Scott is the president and CEO of Peaceable Projects. And she is working to keep alive the 1,000-year old Camino tradition of faith-based hospitality for all. And she actually lives on the trail and has a church on the trail. And she's very involved on a day-to-day basis. And Kim DeYoung is a choice coach, entrepreneur, author, and speaker. And I am going to share a video from Bebe Bahrani, and she'll explain who she is. So just stand by for a moment. All right, and let's see if this works. I never did this before. It worked when I tried it. Okay, there we go.
An American writer and anthropologist and a specialist on the Camino de Santiago. And I'm so sorry that I can't be there today as a part of the panel conversation. And I'm so appreciative of Donna for inviting me to just give a little video sharing some of my experience on the Camino. And I began walking the Camino in 1995, and I've essentially never stopped. That was the year I discovered how powerful it is, that it's not just an incredible long walk, which it is, but also a profound pilgrimage. And I really became a pilgrim that year. I didn't think I was, but locals began calling me a pilgrim. And it was a profound experience, not just being called that, but walking this long road that has been sacred for over 1,200 years, and I would wager longer than that, because people have been walking across that geography for millennia. But for the last 1,200 years, it's been a Christian pilgrimage road. And today, it is a beautiful road that is, it always has been, actually. It's open to all. It doesn't matter what your faith or beliefs are. It is inviting everyone to walk a deep walk, not just in nature and incredible culture and history and prehistory, but also really a transcendent walk where you meet people from all over the world and you meet yourself. And even people who don't expect to have a profound experience on the Camino wind up having one, because it just does something to us when you walk that many days using your own feet, the cadence of your own body, carrying only what you really need, and finding out you really don't need that much. So you really strip down to the essentials. And that is what I love most about the Camino, is how much it keeps teaching me, not only about the world that I meet by walking it, but about the inner world that is more comes to the surface and more exposed by walking it. I'm also enchanted by its total enchantment, that it has a kind of synchronicity, that you meet people and you have insights at just the perfect timing in your life and also in helping others. I would also want to really emphasize that it's become so popular right now, and a lot of people are desiring to walk the Camino for all kinds of different reasons. And I would say, if you have a chance to walk it, that it is an incredible opportunity. It is not just something check off a bucket list, as I've heard people say. It is really an opportunity to hit a reset button on your life, to have time for yourself, maybe for the first time in your whole life, to really reflect on life, and also to meet life, the world around you and the world inside you, at a pace that can be deeply transformative and insightful. As I write in my guidebook, the Camino de Santiago, in the introduction, let me just read this few sentences. In many ways, the Camino symbolizes the act of reclaiming a sense of wonder and beauty in one's life and with the world, something we need more now than ever. It is a great road of transcendence, open to all and barred to none, a walking meditation punctuated by churches, chapels, shrines, streams, hills, mountains, rivers, and valleys. More than anything, the Camino is an experience to be savored, not rushed. And I go back every year, sometimes twice a year, to update the guidebook, but also to keep learning and to keep writing. And one of the things that I've written recently about is in my book, The Way of the Wild Goose, which is tracing a medieval mystery that has a very profound modern manifestation on the Camino today, and is a part of the initiatory deep walk that people can make. So that's everything I have to say right now. I wish I could join your conversation and hear what you have to say, and perhaps in the future we will. Thank you so much, all of you. Thank you, Donna.
Okay, so I will also add some more information about Rebecca on the webpage, and there are a couple of, I was introduced to her through another woman in the Real 50 Over 50, Laurie Seymour, and there are 2 interviews on Laurie's podcast with Baby, so I'll put those there as well. They're really meaningful. And now let's dive in. So we have a couple of comments, which I'll share in a moment, but let's start with, I'm just going to start a question, and this will go off as a conversation, I'm sure. So what led you to walk the Camino? And whoever wants to start can start, and let's just let the conversation flow.
Well, I'll start. It was, I say it's a calling now, looking back. My sister had suggested that I watch The Way, the movie with Martin Sheen. And I did, but it didn't impress upon me. However, in the several months after that, books began to appear about walking, about pilgrimages, Granny Gatewood and the Appalachian Trail. And when things like that happen, you can't ignore them. And so I thought maybe there was something to this. And I began to say, well, maybe I'll just go. And I didn't do preparation. A lot of people do all kinds of walking and getting ready for a year, and I didn't. I just took my little credit card. I went to REI. I started assembling the things that I needed. Most importantly, I needed someone to live in my house because I had 3 kitties there, and I knew that I'd be gone for more than 6 months or 6 weeks. And the women that I finally lined up and everything was set couldn't do it at the last minute. And so someone else managed to step in. It was a series of these things where if it was meant to happen, it was going to happen. And that was pretty much it. I feel like I was kind of swept along on the idea of it. And then the closer that I came to the departure date, the more real it became. I think this all took place within the space of maybe 4 months. Yeah, that was probably it. When I look back at that time, I know that there was something like a river underneath that plan, which was not my plan, and it was not my river. There was just something about the need or the desire to go. And a lot of what Baby said in her video reflects what that ended up being. So that was it. That was it. A movie, books falling off shelves, somebody saying, "Hi thee" to the Camino. And I did.
I wanted to share something, and then I want to pass it to those of you who have walked, because in all candor, I have not walked. And the reason that I am here today with all of you is there has been a walking journey in me. And what I mean by that is that 9 years ago, I began a pain journey that really affected my ability to walk any distance. And I was in a conversation with Donna recently, a few months before this, and she said, I feel like you need to talk to people who've walked the Camino. That became this conversation. And this is just an interesting thread. When Donna made that suggestion, one of the first people that I spoke with was Diane. You told me about The Way, which I didn't watch yet, but what I did get was the memoir that Charlie Sheen and Martin Sheen and Emilio Estevez wrote together, which is an exquisite father-son memoir of their story. And that, I recently had back surgery, and post-back surgery, there I am, Forrest Gump all around town. And I've been listening, and the first book that I listened to was this father-son memoir that is a thread from The Way, which led me to say, oh, I am meant to do some beautiful father-son work with some young men that I am coaching. So point I'm sharing that is just like the threads of things that come off of an experience, a conversation. And while I haven't walked yet, my body's ready to walk. And I'm so excited to hear your stories and your experiences and what led you to it and what came after it. And Bibi shared beautiful things it's an inner world journey, a reset of your life. I mean, I'm looking forward to hearing the wisdom and the thoughts that you have around that.
Kim, I am so excited to hear your journey when you finally take it. I have absolutely no doubt that's going to be the case with all of us cheering you on here.
Thank you. Thank you. It's interesting. And I don't know if you all experience this. I don't know if we're all positioned in the same way in our Brady Bunch screen right now on this, but I am basically in the center, enveloped by all of you. And there's something quite lovely about that. I'm not missing the symbolism of that, which feels really beautiful. So thank you.
Good. That was the intention.
Aw, Anna, you magic.
Okay, so who's going to share next?
I'd like to share because my story feels a little different. I am somebody who had never heard of the Camino before I decided to do it. I have met so many people who say, I've always wanted to do it. It's always been on my list. I saw The Way. Ever since I saw The Way, I wanted to do it. I had no idea what it was. I had simply no idea what it was. And what I was searching for and what I had been searching for about 1.5 years was something challenging that I could do by myself that would really just pull me out of where I was and make me do things differently and make me do things that I wasn't 100% sure that I could do. And I was having a conversation with one of my coaches who tossed out other ideas like the Appalachian Trail and the Pacific Crest Trail. I'm like, those just sound like too much like camping. I'm not that interested in that. And then the Camino came up. I was like, oh, I think I've heard of that. And when I looked into it, I thought, oh, I think it's this. It had the appeal of I didn't have to figure everything out. It was really established. I didn't have to camp, which I didn't feel comfortable doing by myself. I don't have that much experience. And it really turned into, oh, this is the thing that I'm going to do solo. And I came at it with all of these questions I wanted to answer and all of these problems I wanted to solve. And I'll say my first 3 weeks of the Camino, I did it for 8 weeks. My first 3 weeks were miserable because I was all up in here trying to find my answers, like, give me my answers, give me my answers. And it wasn't until I let go of that and shifted that I actually got the answers I was seeking, and I had a much more fulfilling and enriching and powerful experience. And it's just interesting to me how I knew nothing about it. I hadn't even read that much before I left. I just said, well, we'll just go and see. And it really gave me, I heard this phrase, the Camino provides, it gave me the experience that I was really, really craving, that has then since been the platform for me to make changes to my business, to my life, to my relationships, all the things I wanted to do. And it continues to, its magic continues to seep down into my life every single day.
Mm.
I love that, Lisa, because my experience was yet again very different. I grew up with brothers. I worked in a male-dominated industry before starting my own business. And so I'm very comfortable with men, but I wasn't comfortable in the presence of women. And I had one long-term girlfriend. So for me, choosing to do it with a small group of women was transformational in that I learned that I could trust other women. I could be in community with other women. And that was part of my transformation, in that I now have a robust community of women that are my people, right? And we're so connected. And my publishing company really truly focuses primarily on sharing women's stories, which, if you knew me even 15 years ago, would be a shock. And I think for, like what Diane shared, and you as well, Lisa, there was a river. I saw the movie The Way, because in the United States, it really wasn't talked about. The Camino wasn't really known. Appalachian Trail, yes. The Pacific Coast Trail, yes. But although I'd grown up camping, I really didn't have any desire to rough it that much. And I was looking for something different. It was a physical challenge, but it was even more so an emotional one. And so when I heard about the Camino, it was like one of those things that, like you were talking about, Diane, like the books falling off the shelf, it just kept showing up in different ways. And I didn't know when, but I knew I would. And then, as I shared before we started recording the live session, I was in a business meeting, and a woman who I'd never met before, she lives in London. She grew up in Ireland. I'm from the United States. She sat down next to me and she said, what do you do? What do you do? I take women walking on the Camino. And literally the first words out of my mouth were, you're shitting me. Like, really? No way. How is that even possible? And on the break, I went up and called my sons and said, this is something I really want to do. It's in this time period. How do you feel about that? And they were like, go. And I signed up that day for 9 months later to walk. And I did do walking, Diane. I walked every day, variety of different things, different packs, and sticks. We'll talk about the importance of sticks when we get to that point. And for me, it was keeping that commitment to myself that was part of the transformation, and allowing myself to be in community with women, choosing not to do it alone, even though maybe walking it in a group of people, but we're walking at different paces. Much of my time was spent in contemplation. And it's a gift. It's the best gift I've ever given myself.
That's very beautiful. I'm the dinosaur in the room. I discovered the Camino professionally. I was a travel writer, freelance at the time. And but this was back in the gravy train days, when you could actually go on press trips that were sponsored by the government. It was promoting something. Back in 1993, the Spanish government was promoting the Camino de Santiago in the Americas. And they invited me to go along on a press trip to this Camino de Santiago, which I'd never heard of. I'd never been to Spain. I was not really interested in Spain. But so I went, and it was 9 days, and it was a kind of a 5-star tour in a fancy van across the Camino Frances and meeting the mayor and staying in the Parador, but a little bit of walking. And I met some really interesting characters and I met some pilgrims. And this was during the hardcore days. And people were sleeping on the floor still. There was nothing like it is now. But it was fascinating and it was amazing. And I love the art and the architecture and the culture of the Camino, the history of it. And there was so much to explore, and I was blown away. Of course, this was way back. And my life was very complicated at the time, and it took me 7 years before I could come back. But I promised myself at that time that I would come back and walk this whole thing. And I did in 2001. And yes, yet another way back machine. It was still very primitive then, but I did walk from Roncesvalles all the way to Santiago de Compostela. This would be before they developed the path to the ocean, and it really utterly blew me away. It changed my life. I'd never seen anything like it. It was a time in my life where I really did need to have some quiet and some contemplative time, and some peace. And it did hit the reset, and it also made me realize that a spiritual pilgrimage does still exist. It's not a historical relic. There's something really powerful here. And even at that early date, I thought, God, I want to be a part of this. So that's how I discovered it as a writer. And I did write extensively about it in many newspapers and magazines, and promoted it a lot in the years after that. But only after I walked it did I really get it. And after that, it was all over. I got to come and be a part of this. I'm done with everything else. I want a piece of this, and I want this to be a piece of me.
And you have made that happen.
Yes, I think the Spaniards made a good investment. So
yeah. Okay. I'm sorry.
They've earned it back by a few times.
I'm curious for all of you, like when you think of the Camino and actually think of it from a heart space, what does it mean to you? What are you left feeling when you think of the Camino?
The big word that comes up for me is trust. That was one of the experiences I continued to have all along the way. And I tend to be an control enthusiast, let me decide how things are going to wind up, and then I will make that happen. And I found that wasn't a very helpful attitude to have on the Camino. And so once I released my grip and I allowed myself to have the experience I wanted to have, or allowed myself to have the experience, I'll say, along the way, there were things that I needed or wanted. And I found invariably that when I trusted, what I really was searching for came to me in big, beautiful ways. Like there was a day where I couldn't find any fresh vegetables. I was so tired of eating fried stuff and eating potatoes. I wanted like a pepper, I just wanted a red bell pepper. And I couldn't figure out how to, get to a store. And it's a long story, but along the way, I was telling you before the recording, I then walked into an open field that had a food truck filled with, they're selling fresh juices, fresh vegetables, freshly made hummus. I walk up and the volunteer is like, oh, let me cut some fresh cucumber for you. I would have been happy with a carrot. Like if I had gotten an old carrot at the grocery store, that would have been great. And here's this oasis where they're like, would you like everything that you're dreaming of? And I said, sure, I would love that, actually. So trust has been one of the major threads, and it's the word I always think of when I think of my Camino experience.
I'll dovetail onto that. I think for me, it's being openness, not needing to be that control enthusiast, and trusting that everything that I need will be provided, and some of what I also want. and it can come from the most magical, mysterious places. You know, I got hurt coming from Juan Ceballos into Zubiri. There's I call it the dragon's teeth. It's a very steep decline that's shale, and I had developed a blister because I had, as I said, I had the wrong shoes. They were, and it was very hot. It was in September in the 90s, and I felt the blister burst, and I still had quite a distance to go, and I had to walk it. And I mean, when I say agony, I'm not overstating that. But what I discovered is this magical thing called gratitude. And I literally was saying to myself with every step, I'm so thankful for my feet. I'm so thankful for my heart. I'm so thankful for, and I just kept this litany going as I realized I don't feel any pain. I mean, none. And we're going from a scale of 15 on a scale of 1 to 10 to 0. And as soon as I had that awareness, of course, I felt the pain. So I just kept the mantra going. I ultimately ended up losing my heel and had to rest for several days. And this magical hydrogen bandage that I found in one shop in Pamplona actually regenerated my heel in 3 days. I mean, it was amazing. But being open to new experiences. And I came home and realized that, and I did some research, and the receptors in our brains that feel pain get shut down when they're in gratitude. It's an actual thing. And I use that every day, that knowledge. If I am feeling discomfort, if I focus on gratitude for what's working. But being open, I think being open to not knowing and not having things work out the way I wanted them to were the best gifts.
For me, it's invitation. So people have heard me talk about flying into Madrid, and I had made the decision on the plane that I wasn't going to do this because it was the stupidest idea that I'd ever had in my whole entire life. And there was no way. You're flying over these open fields. It's the middle of September. I was exhausted, flying across the country, and then you fly across the ocean. This is stupid. I don't know what I was thinking. And I had done a lot of things in my life. I did hiked places, but you know what? This ain't going to happen. And what made it happen was a note that I read from a friend who had given it to me before I left. And when I was getting all my gear ready, as we were getting into the descent, I pulled it out of the small backpack I had taken with me on the plane. And her opening words in her note were, "Well done." And I'm thinking to myself, I haven't done anything, and certainly not even well. And she continued in the note saying, "I bet you're wondering why I said this when you haven't even begun yet." And she said, because no matter what happens next, the fact that you had stepped out is well done. And so obviously I walked the Camino, so her words had an impact on me. And I walked the entire, I landed in Madrid and I found my way to Pamplona. And from Pamplona, I found my way to Saint Jean Pied de Port and over the Pyrenees and all the way to Santiago and then eventually to Finisterre. It wasn't easy. In the beginning, you have to get your head and your heart and your body all together. And that takes time. As Lisa and Deborah were both saying, there's body aches and there's mental weirdness going on and your heart wants to do it, but it's kind of out of sync because you're bringing the whole of your life with you. And the Camino asks you to shrive yourself of that because you are becoming a pilgrim. People go for many, many reasons, but you are becoming a pilgrim. You are relying on the kindness of strangers, and you're relying on whatever it is that's in yourself to keep on going. And the anniversary of my departure date is coming up September 17th. And so I will celebrate again the entire of the pilgrimage. And I'll pull out my journal, which is very informative, because I did a lot of stomping around, making furious gestures and complaining about shit. Whether it was, 50 people in a dorm room and wet clothes and the fear of bed bugs, which fortunately never happened. The food that was supposed to be there and wasn't. So all of this nonsense, such simple things. What are you complaining about such simple things? Because then on the other side of it, there are things that appear like magic. People who cross your path that in a million years you would not have expected. A Korean opera singer who knew no English. I knew no Korean. And yet here he is walking alongside of me singing O Sole Mia a cappella. I think it is that balance of the yin and the yang of the Camino that stays with me. That's the invitation. It's the invitation to open yourself to all of it, the pain that becomes suffering that you transform into something else. And all these years later, I still have all my pictures serving as the screenshots on my computer. I'm never away from the Camino, never away from it. Mm-hmm. And I think what it does do is it invites us to stay somewhere close in our hearts as pilgrims, as we continue through life. So invitation, that's the word I'm going to choose.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. My word I would choose is community. I went there to work on me and to have my Camino and to get away from my life and it worked that way too. It was great that way. But so much of the experience I had that was superb was with other people, and not just what they did for me, but what I was able to do for them. And it wasn't just me needing me, because I was always doing stuff for other people. I mean, I was raised to be a good wife and mom, and I was, and I was and always taking care of business and taking care of everything. But then I got to the Camino, and people took care of me. People who didn't know me, people who had no stake in this and weren't making any money out of it. People would, walk out of their front door and hand me a glass of wine and say, "Taste this. It's great. I made this." Wow, I'm not in Kansas anymore, Toto. But making some wonderful friends, who I would never in any way ever have met before in my life, and never again. A couple of whom are still good friends of mine. And it was spectacular, the variety of people I met, and the challenges that they threw at me, and the challenges that living as a group and as a traveling community throws at you. At the time when I first did the Camino, it was we slept in albergues, the big bunk houses. That was all we had. That was it. We didn't have the option of taking a room in a hotel or a hostel. We couldn't book ahead. We couldn't send our bags ahead. It was all pretty much you're on your own. But when somebody had a breakdown or they couldn't walk, they couldn't carry this bag anymore, we would split it up among ourselves. We would take care of each other. Mm-hmm. And that was priceless. And that's one of the reasons I work the way I do now, is to try to keep that alive, the comunitas, the community, the fellowship, the fraternity, where we are not all just paying customers. We are each a pilgrim, but we are a pilgrim community. We are the hands of the Lord to help one another make this journey that we're all called to do. So it's not just us. It's not just me. It's us. It's all of us together. So community is my word.
So beautiful. I'm touched by the breadth of your words. Lisa, yours was trust. Debby, openness. Diane, invitation. Rebecca, community. And I guess one question that comes to my mind is how do you keep those words in your heart when you're not on the Camino?
For me, I'm like Diane and Lisa. Like I have my screensavers. I keep my coaster is that I rest my drinks on is a Camino. I have my art, the map of the entire. It decorates my home, so it's in my space. So it's external, but it's also internal because when things get hard, it's like, okay, I can do hard things and take a deep breath, go for a walk. I mean, for me, the answer when things get hard is go for a walk. I carry that with me.
I think for me, keeping the word trust, the trust is just like it comes up with my heartbeat. I just keep thinking the word over and over and over again. And I actually had the idea a week ago. I think my next tattoo is going to be the word trust. It's so important. It's so impactful. And I thought, I think that deserves a little more permanence on this body. So I can't forget it. I simply can't forget it. I have the visual reminders like we all do. But the word trust is just keeps humming through my brain, humming through my heart.
Speaking of tattoos, when I got back from my first leg of the Camino, I went and got the Camino symbol with the forward arrow on my leg for that very reason, to remind myself to always be moving forward, always just one foot in front of the other. And it is a visual symbol. I often forget that it's there because I can't see it, but I feel it. And I it's like that constant reminder. So thank you for that, Lisa. I had not even thought of, I'm carrying it on my body.
Well, I think that Camino is real life writ small. It's the concentrated story. It's a story. It's an epic.
Yeah.
I think the way I keep that Camino experience alive is that I am still very much as an enlightened person. I need to be a part of the community around me, even if I'm back in Pittsburgh where I'm from. If I see the trash on the ground, it's my job to pick it up. If the homeless guy asks me for money or for food, I will give it to him because that's my co-traveler, and it's not my job to ask him why he's here and what his journey is. We're here to help one another and not to judge one another, and not just on the Camino, because that always kind of surprises me. People come back to the Camino to get that feeling again, but we're put in this world for a reason. We are the hands and feet of God herself. Let's take care of each other, and not just on this special time and place. We all live in our own Camino, even at home. Let's do this.
Well, if I could lift my foot up, it would show you the tattoo of the scallop shell and When Camino in script written alongside of it. And so because I'm a barefooting kind of gal, I do see it quite a bit. And this question that you asked, Kim, reminds me of something that was said at the Mass. In the sermon, we were told that it's wonderful that you got to this point, that you've walked the Camino, you have your Compostela, but how will you take the Camino back with you? How will you live Camino then? And then that time you're not really thinking about it because you're euphoric, and we got to Santiago and I got my Compostela. And you get back and some things stay on and some things are a little harder to retrieve. And what keeps me going is what kept me going when I walked, which is everything that we confront. If we can be grateful for it, whether it's just having teeth or work to do or a community to be surrounded by, then we can move through breath by breath, heartbeat by heartbeat, and step by step, because that's how all of us moved across the Camino. I mean, when you tell people that you walked 500 miles across Spain, they're like, oh my God, as if you did it overnight, but you don't. You don't. You're walking through rain, and you're walking through mud, and you're sleeping bad, and bleh. But then there's also the good stuff that we all mentioned earlier. So it's that sense of, how do I get through this moment in my life, heartbeat by heartbeat, breath by breath, step by step, so that I can be good to myself and good to the world. And I think that's what draws me to the work that I do with women and stories. We all have a voice. We all have stories to share. How can we get that out so that each one lifts one and the last person out can shut off the light? That's it.
You know, a question that keeps coming to me as I'm listening to you, I'm hearing your own internal stories and your experience. What I'm curious about is, what have you noticed in terms of your experience, how it has affected how you show up in relationship with others? What would you notice there?
I'm going to start in and out real quick. I'm a lot more tolerant. You know, I'm sister, as the oldest of 7 kids, I can be princess high and mighty, know-it-all, boss of the world. My dark side is righteous, opinionated, and judgmental. And the Camino shaved that away, but it's still there. And so I would say that it's a sense of tolerance for the world at large, especially now, and a sense of invitation to sit and listen. So for me, it means sitting on my tongue and really listening with deep appreciation to what's being said, regardless of whether it matches up with my views or not. So
that's wisdom.
Striving.
Yeah.
That's wisdom.
I would say for me, I've always had a curious nature, and it has exemplified and made my curiosity grow exponentially. Curiosity in terms of, like Diane, I'm also the oldest, and I can be all of those things as well. But if I remain curious and open to hearing what other people are saying or what their experience is, and trusting that they know their experience wherever they are, whether it's, you know, along an enlightened path or not, whether they're in the Muggle world or they're starting wherever they are on their journey, they know what's best for them and what their experiences are, and learning to let go of that need and just remaining curious and open to all sorts of experiences.
For me, I'm going to borrow Rebecca's word of community, because I remember I showed up going, I have to do this alone and I have to figure things out. I can do it myself, which were probably my first words I ever uttered, do it myself. And I learned the such beauty of community in so many different ways, of people rising up, of people helping me, of perfect strangers giving me a hug when I needed a hug, or a snack when I needed a snack, or whatever it was. And when I came back and I looked at my journey, I realized I was meant to do it alone initially, but now community is so important. And it's really, it's made me connect with, like, when I'm working with my clients, when I'm coaching my clients, one of the things I say is, we go together. We go together. It's why I bring groups of women on the Camino now, because it's like, we go together. Each person gets their own individual experience, but isn't it more beautiful? It can be more beautiful if we go together. It can be so much richer and so much more magical. And I remember the times where I felt so very, very, very lonely on the Camino, and the pure gift of a perfect stranger, having a conversation with me or noticing me, or in the mass afterwards, sitting there and it was time to share the peace and I'm all by myself and I'm like, this is the part of the service where, I don't know anybody, who am I going to talk to? And the guy next to me turned, hugged and kissed each one of his friends, and then with no hesitation turned, hugged and kissed me, and then just as if I was part of the group, and then just turned back to the group. And it was the most natural thing in the world. And I thought, oh, we get to go together. All of us here, we get to go together. So that's been that, trust is important, and also the beauty and magic of community.
Rebecca is asking, what does it mean to be a pilgrim? And I would really love to hear, starting with Rebecca, because you're kind of on the other side of this equation, because you live there, you host, you work with the volunteers, you hold this ground sacred, and you help to keep it pure and what it is. What does being a pilgrim mean to you personally, and as you help other people in your community?
Oh dear, that's a huge question. You have to have a couple of hours. Yeah, I'm still a pilgrim. And I'm still am called to walk this path very frequently. And it's so fun because I can just walk out the door. And my problem is letting it go and getting away from it. I'm really burned out. I need to get away from it because it will eat you alive if you let it. But to be a pilgrim, it's a huge privilege. Being a real pilgrim. I mean, there's all kinds of pilgrims, but to be a hardcore pilgrim, it's a calling. It's not something you do like your bucket list. It's not a holiday. It's like being called to be a prophet or a healer. It's someone who travels and collects the wisdom of the path as they move along and integrates it into their lives and listens not just to other people, but listens to the bird song and feels the earth under their feet and lets the rain on them and is not afraid to be outdoors and not afraid to engage in scary things. It's a practice of great courage. And it's also self-giving too. You pick up the trash you see. You take a chance and you pick up some of the really icky trash. You take a chance and you give the guy, the passed out drunk guy, a hand up to get to a bed. You take chances. And taking chances is where the spirit lives. And if it's all safe and it's all tucked away and it's all made sanitary for you, you are kind of cutting yourself off from the essence of it, because it's hard, it's dirty, it's sweaty and difficult, and it's very, very challenging. That's what a pilgrimage is. But you find the sweetness and light in the suffering and in the hardness, and it makes you strong, and it makes you soft and kind and ready to see the need around you. There's a lot of contradiction built into it, but it makes you a servant, and it also makes you a leader, and people are attracted to you because it has knocked a lot of your hard edges off. But it also makes you cranky too. You do not suffer fools gladly. This is a thing that's happened to me over time as a hospitalero too. Is I do not take a whole lot of shit from anybody anymore, and I've really learned how to be strong and to hold my boundaries as well. So that's a big, long answer to a very short question.
No, but that was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Oh, Mary Jane is here. Oh, she's an Uber pilgrim.
Anybody else want to follow that?
I can do it quickly, which is, I think there's also this element of seeking. For me, there's seeking something, and maybe you don't even know what you're searching for or what you're seeking, and that's why you go on this journey. Like I hope to find, I hope to learn, I hope to connect with, and maybe you will and maybe you won't. But I think just the pull of seeking is, to me, is an element of being a pilgrim. And being willing to, step out of your daily life and go somewhere different and have a different experience so that you can, maybe connect with what you're looking for, or connect with what's waiting for you, that you don't even know is waiting for you. So seeking for me keeps coming up a lot.
I agree with you, Lisa. I was going to say seeker, but I also think there's this notion of stepping into the great unknown, because we can only know what's right in front of us, and where we end up sleeping, or what we end up eating, or who we end up meeting, or how the weather's going to be. Like all of the things that we would love to be in control of, we have none. And we realize how much simpler life is by relinquishing that control and just, you said it first as well, trust, and stepping into that with an openness and curiosity, and understanding that what we need the trail provides.
Mm.
I'd like to acknowledge something that Rebecca said. There's a photo that I took. It's one of those Jersey barriers, concrete, along one of the faster roads, and someone with a can of yellow spray paint wrote, "Open your heart wider," and then a little smiley face on the end of it. And something about what you said, Rebecca, illuminates the soul and spirit of who we become. We are talking a great deal about the trek of the walk, and the trust of the walk, and the vulnerability of the walk. And I'm trying to find a way to articulate this. It says, and you did it so beautifully, that we are illuminated by doing this walk, this pilgrimage. And sometimes I think we fail to see that in ourselves. We fail to see what you were calling out about the role of the healer, about the role of being wise women, about how we naturally do something that we might not have done before, how people might be attracted to that like filings to a magnet. And I think that's really important to acknowledge, not in a way to say, yay, Ra, I'm so way cool and I did this and it's really awesome, but personally to say, I did this. This is who I've become. And while there are many ways to do it, and many ways that people will seek to become that, there was something about the power of the words that you used that said, there is this blossoming out and illumination and evolution that happens. And if we take a moment to see that in ourselves, we might see also the grandeur that goes along with all the untidy little bits that we work to tidy up.
So we have about 7 minutes left, and if everybody can just kind of go around and say, like, what you want people to know about this, or how this has changed you, or something significant that that you just want to leave people with.
Well, I would tell people, especially women from the West, from North America, don't overplan this. Don't look at the entire route before you leave, and don't go on a shopping trip and spend $1,000 buying Himalaya worthy gear. Just step out and do it. When you overplan and you over control, I know there's some gifted controllers in the world. It's like, but you're stepping into the pilgrimage, and that's like it's like you're going to take a shower with your raincoat on. You're insulating yourself from the experience. You need to leave all that crap behind and just step in and let yourself live it. I'm not a great believer in the Camino provides. I think that it's not the Camino. The Camino is just a road, but it has a lot of power to it. But what's providing is your spirit is meeting the spirit that makes this world work. And you're plugging into something bigger than who you are. And you're plugging into divine providence. And I'm sure this exists in other parts of the world as well. But don't overdo it. Don't overplan it. Let it be. Let yourself be exactly what you are in this place and this time. And don't take control of this. Just let it be what it is to you. And you will blossom into it. And the path will rise up to meet you. Honest to God, I'm here to tell you. It'll still be hard, though.
For me, I will say that the simple pleasures of walking every day from point A to point B, but hearing the bird song, witnessing in these tiny little villages, cows literally coming home at the end of the day with these little yappy dogs, herding them, acting like big dogs, and seeing women hanging their laundry out and children playing or the grass being cut. Just places that externally I would never have seen had I gone to the touristy places. I would never have seen these magical little chapels that date from the year 900 with just the history in every footstep. And there's something very magical about taking the simplest things and trusting that you're going to see what you're meant to see. You're going to meet who you're meant to meet. And you can bring that magic home, and it becomes infused in our spirits. And that is an incredible gift.
I think in addition to what I've already said, it is another way for the world to feel smaller and more intimate, because there's so much power and joy and magic when you go out into the world and you meet other people who live in different places and do different things and hang their laundry instead of using or whatever. You know, for me, it's simply another reminder that the world is a small place and people are good and people want to be together. And if we open ourselves up and we, don't pack our all of our fears or all of our prejudices or all of that, and we simply show up and with curiosity and with a seekingness and an openness, I mean, that's everything. To me, that's everything. And the Camino is a beautiful, beautiful way to do that, because you do also find people who are showing up, even if those aren't exactly the words they're looking for. They're seeking something, they're open to something new. And you get to have this experience together.
I'll throw out a few lines from The Hobbit. The greatest adventure is what lies ahead. Today and tomorrow are yet to be said. So as I always say, you're not going to cross the ocean by standing on the shore. So whichever Camino it is that you want to walk, the whole of the real Caminos or whatever your personal walk around the block is, that's the place you go, because the adventure is there.
Beautiful.
Step out. Just do it. Yeah.
Kim, how was this for you?
Well, as Lisa, I know, is hoping that I will sign up at the end, I'm feeling it, but what I'm also really hearing, and I think, Diane, you just said something beautiful, which is, where is your Camino? And that there are many Caminos, and my Camino at the moment is a local Camino. And what does that mean to get out, to go there, to show up contemplatively? Actually, that sort of is a key part of it for me. But I think what I've taken away just as a nugget for those of us who have not yet had the opportunity to walk the actual Camino, where can we find our Camino at home? And I think we all can.
Beautiful.
Well, thank you all. This has been amazing, and sharing your stories and your gifts and your experiences. It means the world to me that people come back again and again to share these stories in this little space that I've created. I have also created a web page. So on that web page is information about all of these women plus more. I will put the replay of the video there. I will cut some video clips and put them there as well. My hope is that this becomes a bit of a Camino resource page. So if anybody has anything that they'd like me to add, I'm happy to add it, and we'll continue sharing it out. And links to everybody's website is on this page on my website. And please connect with everybody. Keep this conversation going if you're listening on the replay. Tag us, connect with all of these incredible women, and let's just keep the magic going. And thank you. I mean, if anybody wants to put out a last word,
I'll just say Buen Camino.
Wayne, yeah.
And stop in when you pass through Moratinos. We'll show you the bodega.
Yeah, this has been amazing. So thank you, everybody. And we're going to be back next month with another panel, and every Wednesday at noon Eastern time with an interview. And, please connect all around. That is my intention with all of this, is that connections are made, voices are carried, and stories are embedded in places they never were before. So thank you for spending some time with us today.
Yeah, thank you to all of you.